All righty, we are live. I am just going to hang out here for a minute or two just till people come in, and I will also open this up for discussion. So if anybody has questions, um, please do include those, and then I'll try and answer those either as we go, if they make sense to and relate to what we're talking about at the moment. If not, then I'll hold a Q&A at the end, and we'll go back and answer some of your questions that you have. So let's see. Angela, can you, if you're on, or Megan, can you guys let me know that it is working on your end? Looks like we've got 9 people viewing right now at the moment, so I want to make sure the comments do come in here. It looks like I have it under follower right now. Seconds protected, okay. All right, we got it. Great. Well, yeah, we'll wait, like I said, another minute or two, and see if anybody's come on. We've had started at 9, now we're at 19, so let's just keep it coming, guys. I hope everyone's having a good day today. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it's in the 90s today, and so can't really, yeah, it's 90 degrees today, so we've just kind of been taking it easy, and kind of like a lot of the places all over the U.S., we got to try and stay inside when it's so hot. North Carolina, hey Lexi. North Carolina, I've never been there, but I've heard a lot of really, really good things about it, and I always said if I had to move out to North Carolina for any reason, that I would. I don't know why. I've always been just attracted to North Carolina. Don't know why. But welcome. We're up to 35. Minnesota. Dexter. Hey, Judy. Michigan. Sorry, did I say Minnesota? Michigan. Let's see. Caitlin from Arizona. Welcome. My in-laws were actually just in Arizona. Hey, Janice. Thank you for sharing that with us. It looks like Janice is 52. She says, I was just diagnosed with Tourette. So welcome aboard. You're not the only one. We're here to support you and be here as a resource for you. And what I'm hoping today to get across, if I have to share anything with anybody today, it's that you're unique, and that we're in this together. So hey, Lexi, yeah, crazy weather, I bet. Ireland, wow. Hey, some of my ancestors are from there. I've never been there in person, but hope to be there someday. Massachusetts, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. It looks like we're up to quite a bit now. Iowa, hey, Bree. And we'll get going here. Probably we'll just do another minute or so. But yeah, keep typing in where you're from. I love to see where everybody is that's attending right now. Oh, since you were 8, you were diagnosed when you were 8, Janice. Okay. Wow. Florida. Amy says, I'm just 37, got diagnosed. I've had it for 31 years. Thanks for sharing that. You know, it's funny, I didn't even really know about the Tourette Association of America until 3 or 4 years ago. So I felt alone for a long time. But ever since I found this organization, it's changed so much of how I feel about Tourette syndrome in general. Granddaughter's 8. Tina says she had Tourette. You guys are from Indiana. Awesome. Welcome. Broke our record for the hottest days ever. Kaylin said been above 110, 18 days straight. Hi from Texas, Serbia. Yeah, my neck is always tense too. I actually have a massager next to my bed because of the ticks, and you'll probably see them as, there we go. Holland, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here today, just to listen to my story, listen to a little bit of what I want to share with you. And, I hope, like I said, if you walk away with anything today, it's that you don't feel alone, that you feel like you're unique and you're special for who you are. And that, again, yeah, you're not alone. So what I will do is kind of just give you a little bit of introduction as to who I am, what I'm doing here today, and share a couple pieces of insight for you, and then we'll open up to Q&A towards the end. It's actually 4:05 my time, but 6:05 Eastern Standard Time right now. And I want to respect your time, and so we'll probably go a half an hour or so, depending on the questions, because I know people have places to be and things to do, so I want to respect that. So it's been weird with this whole COVID thing, because I was actually supposed to be speaking at an event in Chicago, and obviously things have changed, and so some of those on the team had asked me to speak there, and since things changed, they asked me to come on to Facebook Live and just kind of try something new and share thoughts with you on here and just do things a little different. So we're kind of just testing things right now. And me speaking in front of a group of people in person is going to be a little bit different than this. And obviously I love that we have participation coming in, and I love that you're tagging people to come in and you're sharing things on here with me and with other people. This is great, and I'm grateful to be here with everybody today. I do not have any medical training background. I do not have anything. I am just a fellow friend and advocate that also has Tourette Syndrome. And so I'm just here to share some pieces of advice that I have and things that I have learned having Tourette Syndrome and some other mental health issues in my past, to hopefully be able to inspire some of you today into some things that you can do in your life to help you make it through some trials and challenges that you may be dealing with, as we all have them. We all have something going on right now that sucks. I'm just going to be honest. And something difficult going on in our lives, and having Tourette Syndrome or having a family member that has Tourette Syndrome doesn't always make that easier. And so, I'm obviously not perfect. I still learn. I'm still going through hard things like everybody else. But some of these pieces that I'm sharing today have come from personal experience and things that I have learned and hope to share with you. So I do also want to tell you, in the caption on the video, there is a link for feedback. So at the end, if you don't mind filling that out, we can get some feedback going. Also let me and the team know how things were today, how things were technically, technologically, emotionally, all of that. So we want to make sure that we're providing you with the value and the information and the support that you're hoping to get. So again, thank you all for being here. So just to give you a little bit of background on me, I, like I said, have Tourette Syndrome. I am 30 years old. I am a father of two. I have a little girl who's 5, about to turn 6, and that's all she can talk about. And I have a little boy who's 3 who actually just started preschool, so he's pretty pumped. And my wife and I have been married a little over 8 years, and we live in Salt Lake City, Utah. We've moved around quite a bit. We actually have moved 12 times in our 8 years of being married. Not all of them have been state to state, but they have been home to home, and we have moved a lot. And because of that, we are actually also real estate agents here in Salt Lake City and in Utah. And part of our big message is about helping people find the place that they love, because we've lived in places that we don't love, and it really impacts your life. And someone who also, me personally, dealing with mental health struggles, if you don't love where you're living and you don't love your neighborhood, and you don't love your community and your city and things like that, it makes life a little bit more difficult to deal with. And if you don't love your home and the space that you're in every single day and spending time in, that makes it more difficult. So that's what we do. We're real estate agents here. My wife has a background in interior design, and so we help our clients really get into the places that they want to be, and raise families in the homes where they can make the best memories and be the happiest. So that's what we do. I have also spoken for several years, and I also wrote a book, and I'll just briefly show it to you. It's called Minimalize to Maximize Your Happiness, Cut the Crap. I wrote this book a few years ago, and I'll share some of this in my presentation today about why I wrote this book and what this book can do to help those who may be suffering with some of the things that I've suffered with. So I've done that. And that's about it. I could go into more, but I won't. I'll say a few things that I love. I love barbecue. I love movies. I love music. I love drumming. I love acting. And I love spending time with my family. That's typically what I do when I'm bored. That's my hobby, is my family. So um, I'm grateful to be here today. Grateful that I was asked to share some of this with you guys today. So some of you may be thinking, well, why is Jake Melton sharing this with us today, especially because he's not a doctor, he has no medical training, or why this guy? So I'll give you my story a little bit. And I think I mentioned, for those who were on before, I've actually only been associated with the Tourette Association of America for a few years. I didn't even know about it, which makes me so sad, because I wish I would have known about it years and years ago. I feel like I could have had a lot more support, and knowing that so many others out there are going through what I'm going through, I think it would have helped me in a lot that I was facing in my life. But I came in contact with this organization, and I just dove in, and I wanted to be able to be a part of it and share my story, and be here as an advocate, and be here as a mentor, and some sort of support to people out there. So that's why I am here today. And so I want to kind of, to begin, take you guys back to give you a little bit of perspective of me and my story. And some of you may resonate with this. I'm seeing comments coming in about people who've had it for decades, or people who have recently just been diagnosed, or people who have family members or friends who have it. So here's my story for you, and I'll try and kind of get through this as quick as possible. So I grew up in Southern California. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I was very active in my youth. I was involved in Boy Scouts, in the youth group at my church. I played basketball. I was in acting. I played volleyball. I was super busy growing up. Okay, so that gives you a little bit just on my personality. I like to be busy. I like to be active in things. So going back to when I was 5 years old, I think it was 5 or 6, I was actually playing at a friend's house. And we were sitting there on the floor. My parents were behind me. Their parents were on the other side of the couch. And I actually remember this moment. I was playing, and I was making this sound. And it got to the point where I could sense that the other parents were looking at my parents and kind of wondering what the heck was going on with Jake and why he was doing this. And my parents just kind of said, "Hey, Jake, stop doing that." And so, I looked back and realized what I was doing, and thought, okay, continued playing, and we just keep doing it over and over again. So my parents asked me a couple times to stop, and it finally got to the point where I said, I can't stop. I'm trying, but it's not really working. So this was 1995. Social media wasn't out, YouTube wasn't out. There wasn't a ton on what we know now as Tourette Syndrome. So we just brushed it off, thought maybe it's because he's a kid, and a lot of kids sometimes go through some of these tics and things like that. So we just kind of moved on from it. Fast forward up into my teenage years, into high school. I was 14, so I had been a freshman in high school. Again, active in a lot of different things. And I had never really had an issue with school, with academics before this point. But for some reason, I started this shoulder twitch. And I remember sitting in the movies, and it just started all of a sudden. So I was throwing my shoulder up, and it hurt. For anybody out there who has had this one or something similar, you know what I'm talking about. It hurts. It hurt my shoulder, it hurt my neck. And so at school, I would usually try and see if I could sit in the corner against the wall. So that way, if I did it would, I'd be kind of restricted in my movement. And I was also really embarrassed about it, so I didn't want people to know. So I tried to keep it as minimal in appearance as possible. And so I noticed at this point that it wasn't just because it was high school, but I noticed, and it wasn't because I was just busy. Like I said, I never had issues with academics, but my grades started suffering a little bit. And I noticed that it was getting worse and worse over time. So that year, freshman year, my dad was actually diagnosed with a terminal illness. And he was given about 6 to 7 years to live. So we were in and out of the hospital. My dad basically had his own suite in the hospital because we were in there so often. And my youngest sister was actually just born. So my dad was diagnosed that September, and my sister was born September. So I was just hit with this huge boulder of responsibility and this huge boulder of worry and stress and all of this. So those of you who have Tourette syndrome, obviously, with stress and anxiety and all of that comes things that, comes the tics, and they typically get worse in those times. So it started getting worse. Not only was I throwing my shoulder up, I was also doing a nose clearing thing, and I was also blinking excessively. And those were almost going on simultaneously. And so I was enacting, I was playing basketball, and I really just kind of tried to deal with it. I didn't want people to see what I was doing. My parents noticed, and my siblings, but again, didn't really know what it was. Thought it was maybe just due to the stress or just something weird about me. I don't know. So it got to the point when I was 16 that my grades were suffering enough. I was in enough pain, and I was actually at this point being teased. I was never teased for anything. I have really white legs. I was teased about my white legs. Besides my white legs, I was starting to get teased about my blinking, and people were running around making fun of me and saying like, who am I, and running around and blinking their eyes and throwing their shoulder up and things like that. And that started hitting here for me. Started affecting my self-confidence and who I was as a person. And it started affecting how I felt about my future. So my parents decided, okay, maybe this is something more serious. It's affecting multiple dimensions of his life, so let's take him in. So we went and saw one of the top neurologists down at the University of Southern California, USC. And at that point, he sat me down in this big leather chair, sitting in. My parents were on both sides of me. He was in the back, kind of like this, had all his degrees on the wall. Big Armenian guy with a big black mustache. And he asked me a couple questions, took me in the other room, did the knee jerk thing, touched, around, make sure I didn't hurt anywhere. And within 5 minutes of all of that, we sat down and he said, Jake, you have Tourette syndrome. I looked at my parents on both sides. I looked at him, and he was just, and I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know what that meant for me. What the heck was Tourette syndrome? The only thing I had heard about Tourette syndrome at the time were these videos of people who had the verbal tics that, people were making fun of them on videos. And so all I thought was, wow, that's all I know about it. People are going to make fun of me. This is going to impact how I interact with my friends. This is going to impact, so all the fear just sunk in. What is going to happen to me at school? What is going to happen to me at sports? What's going to happen to me with acting? I can't be up on stage when I'm freaking out and having a tic attack and doing all these crazy things to people. They're going to be like, what is that guy doing? Is that part of his character? What's going to happen with me with college? What's going to happen if I want to get married? Is anybody even going to marry me? Am I going to die young? I didn't know. Are my kids going to get it? What does this mean for me? So he explained a little bit more about Tourette syndrome, what it is. It's made up of involuntary tics. There's typically verbal or motor tics. He diagnosed me with the motor side of Tourette syndrome. And if you have the motor side of Tourette syndrome, throw up a thumbs up or a smiley face or something. So I know what you guys are dealing with. And he just said, there's basically no cure. There's medication I can give you and things that therapy and things like that may help with some of the other psychological things you're dealing with so that your tics subside a little bit more. But sometimes as you get older, it gets better. Sometimes it doesn't. And I'll just tell you now, from where I am, it's gotten worse as I've gotten older. So I lived my life, the rest of my teenage years, not telling anybody I had this. Didn't even tell my grandparents or my extended family. I didn't want anybody to know. I, at that time, was dating a girl. I had a bunch of friends. I was involved in a lot. I just didn't tell anybody. So fast forward into graduating from high school. Again, now this fear comes in. What am I supposed to do with Tourette syndrome? Am I going to be able to go to college? Am I going to be able to excel in school? Am I going to be able to have a career? At that time, I actually wanted to do public speaking, and I thought, what the heck? Am I going to be able to even do that with Tourette syndrome? Are people going to hire me as a speaker later in my life? Um, if I have Tourette syndrome, what if I become an actor? What is that? Yeah, Gloria, I see it's gotten worse for you as you've gotten older as well. Not fun, huh? But I'm right there with you. And so all this fear again. What is this going to mean for my life? So you know what I did? I just tried to ignore it, and I just tried to move forward in my life and not allow it to stop me. So I applied to college. I got in. I didn't have the best grades, but I got in. I decided that I was going to go into communications and get a degree, and then I wanted to get into business and start a business one day, and I wanted to have a family, and I wanted to do all these things. So even though the fear was inside, I tried to do my best to kind of cover that up. But I felt very alone with that as well. I didn't know anybody else, not one other person at this time who had Tourette syndrome. So I was worried. And so I went through my young adulthood, always kind of feeling alone, trying to just push through and accomplish what I wanted to accomplish without getting in the way. But again, still felt concerned and worried about my future. So in my early 20s, it was a new school year. I went into a class. It was the first day of class, and it was a singing class, which I wanted to learn how to sing. And I walked in late. I got into the front. I turned around, and there was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen, a couple rows behind me. So this room I was in was full of mirrors, and I kept looking in the mirror to try and check her out behind me. So move on to the next class period. She was sitting in the classroom all by herself. I was on time. I walked in, I sat down next to her. Long story short on that, I ended up asking more about her, got her name, we ended up connecting, we went on a date that weekend. So my worry at this time was, is this girl gonna wanna date somebody who has Tourette syndrome? Does she even know what it is? Number one. Number two, is she gonna wanna marry somebody with this? Number three, is she gonna be worried that our kids are gonna have it if we were to have kids? I know that's early on, but I mean, these were legit concerns, okay? So we were a few dates in, and I decided that I should probably tell her I really liked her, and it was coming fast, and I knew that I wanted us to go somewhere, and I knew we would. But I wanted to be certain that she knew I had this, because I didn't want to get all the way down the road. Let's say like we're engaged and she finds out I have Tourette syndrome. She would have noticed by now, I understand. But I wanted to, this fear that goes in, you never know. I wanted to share that with her. So we were on a drive, just on a date, and I said, hey, I got to tell you something. And she probably thought it was like so bad by the way I was saying it, because I really was. I felt almost ashamed. I was embarrassed. I was worried. I was scared. And I just said, hey, I have something called Tourette syndrome. This is what it is. And you've probably seen me doing stuff and wondered, what the heck is Jake doing? But I shared it with her. And her response was, oh, I haven't even really noticed. I didn't really even know. And I was shocked that she didn't notice. But I was more shocked that she just kind of brushed it off and it was okay. Let me tell you, that is actually my wife now. And she's loved me for me ever since. But that fear I held on to for years and years and years just happened in a moment, and it was okay. And she ended up loving me for me. We ended up being able to start a family and raise a beautiful family. We got two beautiful kids. We've been able to work together. I was able to actually go to college, get a degree. I was able to actually go get a master's as well, and I've been licensed and certified in many other things. So the point of me sharing this with you guys here today is that, especially for those in their young adulthood, or those who are in high school right now, or even in middle school, or those who have just graduated high school, or those who are early in their college years, you can do whatever it is you want to do, and Tourette syndrome can't stop you. It may want to stop you, but you can't let it stop you. There are going to be things that you want to do in your life, and Tourette syndrome may become an excuse or may become a barrier, but don't allow it to. Coming from someone right here who has actually been able to get through and accomplish things in my life that I never thought I would be able to accomplish with Tourette syndrome, my advice and my special message to you right now is that you can actually get through it. You can do it. Okay? There is someone out there who will marry you and love you for you despite you having Tourette syndrome. There are people out there who will be friends with you. Most people, one of the things I've learned, most people don't even know that you have it, okay? Or people out in public aren't paying attention. One of the things I've learned is so many of us have so many problems in our lives. We're so insecure about our own personal things that we're not watching everybody out there. People aren't, when I go to church, I feel like I always try and sit in the back because I don't want people seeing what I'm doing if I sit in the front. Nobody's watching. Nobody really cares. I'm not watching the people in front of me. I'm worried about myself. I'm insecure about what's going on, but people in the back are insecure about what's going on with them. So, all of these fears, again, that we have inside of us due to Tourette syndrome or because we have Tourette syndrome or we've been diagnosed with it, don't let it hold you back, okay? Do not let Tourette syndrome keep you from living the life that you want to live and achieving the goals that you want to achieve and living the dream and living the life and living whatever it is you want to live. Do not let it hold you back, okay? You can get there. Just know, things will be difficult along the way, but you can do it. So there's 3 points I wanted to make after sharing my story and sharing that piece with you here today on things that I have done to help me through these times. Now, I want you to know I have also been diagnosed with anxiety. I've been diagnosed with depression. And I told you earlier on that my dad was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And he actually passed away, it's 6 years now, 6 years ago. I was the only one not there. I ended up going and leaving town to make some money because we were desperate, even though I felt that I shouldn't. So I lived with guilt. I lived with regret, anger, bitterness, depression, anxiety, Tourette syndrome, and all these things all at once. And it's been hard. It's been hard for me. And so I've had to figure out things along the way to help me just cope with life with Tourette syndrome while dealing with these other things, while trying to figure out how to make it through college, while trying to figure out my first job, while trying to figure out if anyone's going to hire me. I'll tell you, I was a waiter, and that didn't go well having Tourette syndrome. I had to tell them I couldn't lift certain platters because I was afraid I'd drop it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out there. There's things like that you deal with. Trying to figure out family and starting a family and where you're going to move and financially all these things that you got to prepare for in life. Then at the end of the day, you still have Tourette syndrome. What the heck? Why were we given this? Why do we have so much to deal with all the time? Plus we have this. I've thought that. And many of you probably have too. But there are things that we can do to help us cope with that. And there are 3 things that I want to share with you. Number one of the things that I have learned that can help you deal with life, young adulthood, responsibilities, stress while having Tourette syndrome is service. Service, charity, and giving your time or money or efforts or attention to others. It has been amazing the impact that has had on my life. Now, a lot of us with Tourette syndrome, when we focus more on the tic, or we focus more on ourselves and the stress and anxiety and boredom and anger and all of that, again, the tics come on worse. But I have found that when I'm focused on others, I'm focused on a project, let's say helping someone in your yard, or I'm helping someone carry their groceries, or I'm texting someone or calling someone to see how they are in their life, or whatever the form of service, whatever form that comes in. My tics seem to be lessened during those times. And so, I'm not saying this is a what's the word I'm looking for, like a healing thing and it's going to get rid of your tics. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in my experience, I have seen the more I focus on others, the more I serve, the better it is for me. And the better I have felt inside and the easier it has been for me to be able to get through some of these difficulties that life just gives us. No matter what, they're all different. Some of us have totally different trials and challenges, but the more we focus on others, the easier it'll be to get through those things, or the more confident or the more fulfilling we will feel, which will help us overcome those hurdles in life. So, service, give to others. Number two is self love. I have not perfected this yet, not even close. But I do know that the more I love myself, the more I accept myself, the more I forgive myself, the happier I am in my life. And the easier it is for me to get through the trials and challenges that I'm facing. Self love. We do have those negative thoughts, and we do have those limiting beliefs that because we have Tourette syndrome and maybe other mental illnesses or diseases, that we're broken, that something's wrong with us, that we're handicapped, that we're whatever. We've all thought that at some point. But the truth is, that's what makes us us. And I know that sounds cliche and that may sound cheesy, but it is what makes us who we are. And that is going to help us become a better version of ourselves in the future. It's going to help us become better parents. It's going to help us become better teachers, better mentors, better leaders when we are able to have something as difficult as maybe having Tourette syndrome is, and being able to look past that and love the person behind it anyways, and accept that and try and push that out of the way and not let that block who really is underneath. And so loving ourselves is another way that we can overcome these challenges and these hurdles in life. Janice, God made us special. God or higher being or who, whatever your belief is, whatever that may be, we are all special in our own ways. And all of our parents know that. They know that we are all special for who we are. And for any of those who are parents out there, you know you feel that way about your children, right? They are special for who they are. They're individual. They're unique. They're awesome for who and what they are. And that's great. That's awesome. That's what makes the world go round. That's what makes the world so wonderful. So, self-love. The third is actually where I bring back and tie in my message on cutting the crap, okay? So years ago, dealing with all this stuff I was telling you I was dealing with, taking medicine, meeting with therapists, it wasn't enough. So I kind of took inventory of my life and thought, what the heck can I do to get rid of so much stress? It is so much, like gray hairs, weight loss, all of these things. I saw a question come in. I will definitely answer that here. I'll be wrapping up in just a moment. I realized there's got to be something, some fat I can cut in my life because this is just too much of a burden. I can't keep going with this much of a burden. And so anybody out there who loves TV, who loves Netflix, will probably understand where I'm coming from on this. Years ago, I was loving Netflix. I still love Netflix. I decided to turn on a documentary. Documentaries were actually a way for me to kind of get away. And when I was having, severe tics and things like that, a documentary was usually getting my mind going and keeping me less bored and more intrigued in what I was watching. So I did that a lot. And Netflix had a special, and it was called Minimalism. And if any of you have seen that, just throw up a peace sign or throw up a thumbs up or smiley face. It was called Minimalism, and I decided I would watch it. It intrigued me. So I turned it on, watched it. Now, I knew about minimalism because I had done some art history classes in my undergraduate and generals and stuff like that. And I had heard about this new philosophy of minimalism. All I really knew about it was people lived in vans, people lived out of a backpack, as far as their organization in their home, like minimal furniture. That's all I really knew. And so going into this, I kind of expected that to be all it was about. And as I watched it, I started kind of getting epiphanies that there was so much more to minimalism. There was way more places in my life that I could apply minimalism to than just physical clutter and organization. I could apply minimalism to what was going on in here. So I decided at that time Gloria, great documentary, it's awesome. I decided to start applying some of these principles I had learned from this documentary in different parts of my life. There were relationships that I had that were beyond expired, but because I love relationships, I was just trying to pull them along into my future and keep them with me, but they were ready to be cut. There were things that I was just involved in so many organizations or involved in so many things that I had no time for myself or I had no time for my family. And again, too much stress, too much anxiety, too much for me to handle. So I thought, well, if I just keep trying to cut some of these things in my life, maybe my stress and anxiety will lessen. But let me tell you, it did. Anybody out there who has done this will feel me on this. That when you get rid of things in your life that aren't doing you good, that are harmful or toxic, that leaves more room for the positivity and the great and the goodness and the happiness and the strength in your life. Okay, and so that's what I wrote this book about. It's on Amazon for anybody that's interested. Just type in, again, minimalize to maximize your happiness, cut the crap. I share different ways that you can get rid of different things in your life, relationships, physical clutter, emotional clutter, so that you can experience a happier life, so that you can experience hopefully less tics, or at least more peace in your life so there's less tics, and be able to make it through, again, targeting right now what this message was intended for, youth or young adults who are going through some of the most stressful decisions and times of their entire life. It's stressful, so stressful, and that's why a lot of us lose our hair or turn gray by the time we're 30, because it's stressful. We're making decisions that are going to impact us the rest of our lives. And so these things, service, focusing on others, loving yourself and accepting yourself, and getting rid of things you do not have time for, things you don't have energy for, things you don't have passion for, just get rid of it. Those things will help you so that when you do go through these trials, as you do go through these decision periods and face these hurdles, you'll feel more strength in your life, more peace, so that as you're doing that and you're already dealing with Tourette syndrome, hopefully it'll make it easier for you to get through. So that was my message for you today. I know things have been a little bit more casual, hopefully, and I've been grateful for the questions and the comments that have come in. And, thank you for listening to my story. I know many of you may not even care, but I'm grateful that you did take the time to listen in today. And, I want to leave that message with you. So what we'll do, we'll take just a few minutes here. Again, I want to respect your time. It's 37 mark, so we'll take a few minutes here, answer some questions, and then if you don't have any right now and you want to ask me some later, you can ask anybody on the team at TAA for my info, or you can follow me on Facebook, Jake Melton, or Instagram, and then seriously just message me. I would love to be able to help in any way I can. Let me go up. Let's see. I want to see if there's any questions up towards the top that we had towards the beginning. And if I forget a question, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to kind of read through these here. Some great sharing going on here. Thank you for everybody that shared a little bit of, I know they're very brief, but a little bit of your story and what you're going through. Someone asked, just kind of the group, if they tried cognitive behavior theory, CBT. I personally haven't, actually. I've actually heard things about it and have had people recommend that, and that's something I should probably try. But Judy brought that up, and I think someone else did as well. I don't know the research or the studies on that, but it's definitely something I want to look into personally. Okay, question from the submission online. What does pursuing minimalism look like for you in your pursuit of coping with mental health struggles when beginning a new chapter? For me, change is like a trigger when my struggles seem to be at their highest. Yeah, and I feel like that's just kind of, adulthood in general. It's always, there's so much change going on, and there's so much responsibility always just kind of being layered on there. So many new challenges being laid on there that it can make it hard. But to answer your question on what minimalism looks like for me in my pursuit of doing this, again, it comes down to you only have so much time in the day. You only have so much energy. You only have so much mental capacity throughout your day, right? So if you're overloading that with things that aren't as important or things that are contributing to the negative aspect, triggering more tics or triggering more episodes or whatever you want to call it, and making your anxiety or your stress worse, that's where there's a problem. So that's where you want to start clearing out that clutter in your life, whether it's, like I said, responsibilities. Maybe you are committed to too many different things at once, so maybe cutting some of those that aren't as important to you. If you feel like you have too many big decisions to make, again, just taking those one at a time and seeing if you can get help. Finding somebody, whether it's a parent or a sibling or a spouse or a teacher or a mentor or a leader, finding somebody who can be there with you to help support you and kind of keep you accountable so that you're not going crazy, so that you can kind of keep things compact in your life. That way you can focus on it better and you can prioritize better. That's what I would say. Just kind of like a storage unit, I use that analogy. If you have a storage unit, you got it full of things, some things you've never seen, that you in years you don't even know what you have, and certain Tupperware things that you use every single day but you're sick of coming to the storage unit to get every day, things that are trash, things that you could sell. Think about that in your life. Take inventory of what you're dealing with in this little storage unit, which is your life, and figure out some of the things that are trash. Figure out some of the things you don't use anymore. Figure out some of the things you can get rid of, things that you use all the time that you can apply more or use more on an everyday basis. So kind of think about it that way. Hopefully that answers your question. But get rid of the crap. Cut the crap. You don't need it. We already have enough crap we're dealing with. Susan said, my daughter was diagnosed with severe case when she was 7. She's now 30, weathered through it because she's a warrior. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Susan. Great documentary. So I'm just kind of reading the comments. Looks like we don't have a ton of questions, which I'm totally fine with. Janice says here, my dad was diagnosed with dementia 5 years ago. He's now 81. This made my depression, anxiety worse, as we're a very close family. Hardest thing by far. How can I minimize these feelings? I'm going through ambiguous grief. I'm sorry you're going through that. Let me just say that, number one. I feel ya, and I'm sorry that you're going through that. To answer your question on how do you minimize those feelings, I think one of the things that just comes to me first is find someone that you can talk to, or find some sort of way that you can let those feelings out. I know that also may sound cliche, whether that's journaling, whether that's writing your thoughts down, maybe getting your phone and recording your thoughts. Marco Poloing, friends, if anybody has that. If you don't have that app, that's an awesome app to keep in touch with people with. Finding some sort of way to express what it is that you're feeling inside. Again, that just makes us feel better. I don't know why, but it does. So when you do feel extreme anxiety or extreme depression, finding some sort of support, so that you don't feel alone. And as you let some of that out, like, when you're mad and you yell into a pillow and it just makes you feel better, or when you're sad and you just sometimes have to cry, like doing that, but in verbal or vocal ways, so that you can just let whatever it is inside of you out. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. That's not the best answer at all, but that's personally something that I thought about, and that helps me. I talk to my wife a lot, and she's a extremely good listener, and I even talk to some of my really close friends just when I'm having a hard time, and it makes me feel better. Sometimes they don't even say anything. How do you deal with tics in class, in school? When I'm engaged and focused, I'm usually fine, but there are some bad days. I know, I feel you. There are bad days, Sadie. My advice is, number one, let your teacher know what it is you're going through. Like I said, from my experience, there's been a lot less judgment in the world, because almost all of us have something, whether it's visually apparent or not. We're all dealing with something. But letting your professor or your teacher, if you're in college or if you're in high school or middle school, letting your teacher know what it is you're going through, so that if there are bad days, perhaps there is something they can do to work with you, or some sort, maybe if you say, hey, I had a really hard time today with Tourette Syndrome, or I had a lot of tics today, or I'm in a lot of pain, I can't focus. Letting them know that you may have some bad days, and then perhaps they'll be more willing to work with you, maybe one-on-one, or letting a peer know, so that way maybe you could say, hey, for me, I'm throwing my shoulder up a lot. I can't really write today. It's messing me up. Can I borrow your notes? Or can I see your notes at the end of class? That way you can sit there and deal with what you're dealing with, take care of yourself the best you can, while not having to also worry about missing notes or missing what's going on in class. That's just a piece of advice that I have there. What is good medicine for an 8-year-old that has Tourette's? Tina, that is a great question. I'm not going to answer it though, just because I don't have that training or that knowledge. But for our team, please write that down, because that would be awesome. Just to give resources out. I know we don't need to answer that question, but maybe there's a way we can give some resources out for people. For me personally, I've been on dozens of different kinds. I've tried different kinds to see what works, and it's just different for everybody. So definitely try and see if you can take your child in, if it is your child, I assume, and with a psychiatrist or a psychologist if you feel, or maybe a natural medical professional or something, and then just see what their opinion is, because they'll hopefully be able to have some answers for you. Did I know Billie Eilish has Tourette's? Yes, I did know. It is always great when you have somebody who has a great presence that can stand up for something like this. But I've also learned that we can make a difference where we are and where we are in our lives, whether we think we're impacting people or not. We are. And so, being a good example and educating and advocating is powerful, and we can do that daily. Kaylin asks some people to share some things. Jose says, sometimes I'm afraid of speaking in public in class because my tics get in the way. It happens. I know. I still get it. But you know what I've realized? Especially public speaking, I've spoken in front of groups of thousands of people at one time. People are there rooting you on, and people are there to support you. People don't want you to fail. People aren't watching you, Jose, in class and saying, I hope he messes up, or I hope he does a crummy job, or I hope he feels insecure about himself. People don't tend to do that. If they are just jerks. But most of the time we're supporting people, and if someone is struggling, we are mentally in our heads, most of us are encouraging that person, even if it's not out loud, and hoping the person gets through it. So just know that even in class, people are there supporting you, and they don't want you to fail. So don't feel as insecure about that as you may feel. And if you do have verbal Tourette's, or you have stuttering or anything like that, just know, again, people want you to succeed, and that's you, and you're doing great anyways. Let's see. My nephew's 17, wanting to get his license. Any tips on helping control tics while driving? That's a really good question. As my tics have gotten worse as I've gotten older, obviously I've been driving a long time. It wasn't as big of a deal for me when I first got my license as it is for me now. But my tips would be, if you can let someone else drive, have someone else drive if at all possible. Sometimes I'll just tell my wife, hey, I need you to drive. It's really bad right now. The other thing is just try to get comfortable, even if you do have it, or if you have the blinking, or you have anything with your head or shoulders or arms, anything like that, trying to just make yourself comfortable, whether that's a back pillow, or whether you may need to put a travel neck pillow around just to kind of hold your neck in place, just the seat belt. Do whatever you possibly can to get as comfortable as you can. And then beyond that, sometimes there's just really nothing else you can do. If you feel like it's going to be a danger to somebody, then obviously try and not drive at all. Or, like I said, find someone else who can. Personally, I didn't need to let my people know that I had it, because it wasn't impacting my driving that much. So obviously that's up to your judgment if you feel like you need to bring that up, in the license process. I don't know what the right answer is to that, but that's my 2 cents on that. Let's see. Jose said he did end up telling his professors he had Tourette Syndrome, but he was supportive. Great. Glad to hear that. That's awesome. And if they're not supportive, then they really have issues, but most of them should be there to support you and be understanding. Ticking while driving is rough. It is rough. Oh, this Glory says to listen to podcasts. Yeah, podcast music, whether it's calming music or just something that keeps you distracted in a good way. Try and do that so that you can remain calm as you're driving. And, try and stay out of situations. For me, driving in traffic obviously makes it come on worse. So I either try and avoid driving in traffic or going an alternate route or having someone else drive. Again, trying to find different ways around it so you don't have to deal with it if you don't have to. It looks like we're all cut up here, everybody, and we've gone almost an hour. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you for your questions, and we'll end here so you guys can get back to the responsibilities of life that we all have. Again, if you have questions, reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, Jake Melton. And I'm grateful that I could be here. Thank you to the team for inviting me on. And bless everybody out there, especially at this time with everything that's going on in the world. We've already have enough to deal with. I know it doesn't make it any easier. But again, my last message to you is just know you're not alone. And you can do it. You can get there. Just keep pursuing and pushing through, and you'll get there. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.